Hello everybody and welcome to this comparative video where I want to talk briefly about the valuation of a few stocks in the health field. So again, this is my spreadsheet. This is enterprise value over gross profit over revenue growth. So this is my estimate of how much am I paying for that growth? How much are we paying for the future growth of the company? And then the rule of 40, of course, it's initially for SaaS businesses, but I think you can apply the rule of 40 to any business. The rule of 40 is simply the EBITDA margin, which I use as a proxy for cash flow, plus the revenue growth added together should achieve more than 40. If they don't, the stock is usually considered non-interesting by VCs, right? In this early formula, VCs would not be interested if rule of 40 was not achieved. Well, I have 2 stocks that achieve it, and I have 3 stocks that don't. And so let's get started with these stocks. And so LifeMD and HIMSS. HIMSS and baby HIMSS, mini HIMSS, whatever you want to call it. This is, I often call LifeMD. LifeMD is a HIMSS, but 5 years ago or something like that. That's the way I look at it. And I find that LifeMD is right now the most compelling telehealth stock as far as I'm concerned. It is very cheap, and it is especially cheap. It is actually cheaper than that, much cheaper than that, probably 0.05, when they will sell WorkSimpli. We just don't know when they're going to sell it. They own this legacy software business. They own a majority stake in a software business that is growing at about 15% per year. It's a SaaS business. And they need to sell it. But of course, this is not exactly the environment to sell any businesses with the rates the way they are. So they're stuck with it. It generates cash flow, but it messes up the growth rate. The growth rate for LifeMD is actually much nearer to 50%. It's more than 50% year-over-year growth rate, but it's showing less because of WorkSimpli being a more stagnant business. LifeMD, importantly, is not a platform for doctors. They hire their own doctors, but mostly nurse practitioners, right? They are much cheaper, but they do hire them, and they have a center, or they come to work every day, etc. What differentiates them from HIMSS is that HIMSS, of course, they did the Tribe partnership where they're going to do mail-in, mail-order lab tests. LifeMD partners with LabCorp and Quest for lab tests, and they have especially a partnership with this at-home phlebotomist program where you just have someone, a nurse, not a nurse, but a medical assistant come to your home and just draw blood at your home, and then they do the analysis. They have an at-home phlebotomist or Uber for phlebotomists. So that's the way they deal with labs at LifeMD. So they got the docs done, they got the labs done, and they just launched, of course, their own pharmacy. This is new. This is getting traction, of course, because you don't want to lose the business and prescribe something and then it's another pharmacy that fills it, which is the way they used to do it. They used to give coupons and you could go to your local pharmacy. Now they want to fulfill the business as much vertically with their own pharmacy, and they're going to start compounding soon. That's my catalyst number 2. My catalyst number 1 is Optimal Health MD. That acquisition could actually propel them ahead of HIMSS for menopause. As far as I'm concerned, HIMSS hasn't really launched the menopause offering. Optimal Health MD is about to launch. This is the acquisition that they've done for osteoporosis. And I think this could be a hit. This could be a good complement to their male-oriented HRT business, which is the RexMD business is the way they have it. Anyways, last thing, and this is a plus or a minus, depending on your philosophy on this. A key differentiation is they take in insurance and especially pharmacy benefits. So I don't argue that pharmacy benefits are a plus. Those PBMs, as they're called, they're usually a separate things, and they're not nearly as bad, at least per my understanding. They're not nearly as complex as taking health insurance to pay for the doctor. So I have less of a pushback on this, but I do have a pushback when you say you take insurance, saying it's a good thing, because actually I think one of the main reasons why HIMSS was able to grow so fast and really not be noticed by anybody, and now HIMSS is getting noticed as it's a $13 billion company. That's when you notice HIMSS, is because they didn't take insurance, right? I think taking insurance could be a plus because you have some customers who really want to use that insurance, but I also think this could be a key disadvantage because when you deal with insurance, you're going to deal with reimbursement issues. You don't really know how to charge. So maybe they have a better system to handle it, but I typically, I'm going to be neutral here on this one, but typically I do not like insurance very much for telehealth business, for the simple reason that you grow so much more slowly if you have to accept insurance. There's a lot of customer-centric things you can't do if you accept insurance, like give the real price, like tell the price to the customer. You can't really do that if you accept insurance because it depends on your insurance, right? It's kind of like a small business. One small business has the prices written on their website. Another small business has a call for a quote. I'll give you a hint. The business that has the prices written on their website gets all of the business, not the one who says call for a quote, because the last thing people want to do these days in the era of the 21st century is actually call someone and talk to someone on the phone. That's something people don't like. So anyways, and this is where HIMSS shines, because HIMSS tries, unfortunately, HIMSS still has to do video visits often, but they try to do as much as they can via chatbots and via conversations. And again, the CEO here is saying, we have actually a live 30-minute call. Well, that could be a plus. It's still a plus, but is it really going to be a plus down the road when the preference is going to be chatbots, right? Especially as now people are so getting used to chatbots. Grok is a chatbot, ChatGPT is a chatbot, Llama 3 is a chatbot. That's the mode of communication of the day, not video, right? So anyways, moving on. Stock number 2 needs no introduction. So in this, I'm obviously not adding to HIMSS at 58, right? It's way too expensive compared to the earlier tranches of this stock. So for me, this is a stock that I'm going to ride to the top. That's the way I'm thinking about HIMSS. I'm not adding at these levels, but HIMSS is obviously the leading telehealth play in the United States. Period. They have a nearly 50% market share. Just for the sake of this video, I just ran it at 50%. I think it's 47 or 48%, but they have nearly half of the market share. They are focusing on relentless, highly profitable, going after verticals. They take a vertical, they take a cash cow of the traditional health industry, and they target it, and they go after it, and they only cater to that cash cow. They don't do comprehensive care just yet. I think that's going to be the next step for HIMSS. But for now, they anxiety, highly profitable vertical. They go hard after it, right? Hair loss, highly profitable vertical. They're going to do that with menopause. They're going to do that with HRT. They, of course, do that with GLP-1s, needless to say, right? But it's what this stock seems to only talk about with HIMSS. They only talk about GLP-1s. But anyways, they focus on highly profitable verticals, and then they just go after them. That's kind of the way they compete compared to LifeMD, which is more comprehensive thing where they're going to have, for example, LifeMD Plus, which I think is a very compelling offering. For $90 a month, you get access to a doctor. Anyways, so different. They focus on the verticals first, right? They focus on the parts of the business first, and then they're going to put them together, I think, in the second wave of the business. What's a big plus for HIMSS? And the reason I believe this company has been able to grow, remember, quarter-over-quarter growth was 111%. Right, I'm putting 65%. I might myself, you might call me a sandbag king for only giving them 65% here. They might do much more than that. They could do 100% again next 12 months. But anyways, I think one of the reasons why they grow so fast is their independence from insurance companies. They don't take it. They don't take it. And so they're entirely independent. They can innovate. They can move so fast. They don't need permission to innovate from an insurance company who says yes or no on a treatment. They just go direct to consumer. And as Dudum said on the call, the CEO, he said, that's the last thing we want. And they are setting themselves up to be a vertical integration juggernaut with the doctors. It's a doctor platform, right? Doctor can go in there and you can just work 1099. You can just work as a contractor as a doctor. The pharmacy, automated, large. They double down on Phoenix as a location. They've rented an extra 700,000 square foot or something like that. The labs with the Tribe acquisition. So you got the CVS, you got the Quest Diagnostics, you've got your Well, I guess I could say you're UnitedHealthcare, which is like the biggest employer of doctors in the US. So that's 1, 2, 3. What else do they have? Oh, wow. Their own drugs. Let's not forget that the generic liraglutide that they are selling is manufactured by HIMSS, right? Let's not forget that a lot of their compound solutions are manufactured by them. So is HIMSS going to be a mini Teva Pharmaceuticals, for example, right? Which is the generics giant. Are they gonna be a generics manufacturer? And because liraglutide, of course, is a generic, are we going to be a generic manufacturer, a lab, a pharmacy, and a doctor company all together? This is shaping up to be a huge company, in my view. This is going to be huge. And the catalysts, of course, because we don't have enough, the catalysts are AI. They're going all about AI. So these docs, they're hired, right? It's all about making the best decision. If you make the best decision, well, you have better patient adherence. People are more likely to stick. They're more likely to stay with a prescription. They stay with the pill. So you use AI to assist your doctor in your prescriptions. And then, of course, international is the big catalyst that they have coming. And HIMSS, as I've always described, is going to be an e-doctor plus any pharmacy. Should I call it an e-lab? Not really, right? Because it's kind of physical. So plus labs, plus maybe one day generics manufacturing. Actually, let's do that. That could be a good vision. Plus generics manufacturing. There you go. Minus insurance. All of this could be HIMSS. Digital doctors, digital pharmacy, labs, generics manufacturing without insurance. That could be the recipe for success for HIMSS. I really look forward to the future to see what HIMSS has to offer. And so these are two stocks that I love: LifeMD and HIMSS, especially HIMSS. Right? It's tough not to love HIMSS when you're up, about a 10x right now. So it's tough not to love it. But LifeMD. Don't be fooled by LifeMD. They actually have outstanding performance. They're at about a 10x over a 6 or 7 year period if you look at the chart. So they've had an outstanding performance as well. Don't fade LifeMD. It's pretty impressive too. Anyways, Talkspace. Let's talk about Talkspace. So I briefly got into Talkspace. I liked it, and then I got out. I'm out of Talkspace. And there's a few reasons why. But there's really only one reason why. It's AI is the main reason why I'm out. I used to see Talkspace as like a money grab. Like it's like a way for them to take a lot of money from insurance companies. I see and I don't mean it in a bad way, but I could see them as creating a platform where therapists and customers in need of mental health therapy go on the platform and they meet and they chat, and they have a platform who takes the fee on top of that. And of course, Talkspace also adds mental health benefits, pays for the mental health benefits via the insurance company. And actually, I used to praise Teladoc because Teladoc has BetterHelp, and BetterHelp is cash pay. So I used to think that Teladoc had the better strategy with BetterHelp than say a Talkspace, who's trying to get the money from the government, who's trying to get the money from the insurance companies, trying to get people to use their health benefits. And so, for example, they had a big program with high schoolers. They had a program with the New York City Department of Mental Hygiene. That's a real thing that really exists. They got like a $2 billion budget or something. And then they wanted, of course, to deal with veterans. That may still be, if I'm wrong, may still be a major market. But my own personal opinion, and that's just me, is whether the insurance pays for it or not. I think people are just gonna go full AI on this. I mean. Are you on your own starting to have conversations with Grok whenever you have a question, or starting to have conversation with ChatGPT in talk mode? It's gotten so smooth, it's gotten so good, so fast. I can just ask Grok free, you're now the world's best mental health professional. Please help me deal with, I don't know, issues in my couple. And I need some couples counseling. Why don't you act as a couples counselor? And the AI, boom, just turns on a very empathetic voice and starts being your counselor. And it's really, really good. And it's really responsive. And it's 100% free. So even if insurance covers it, I'm not so sure. And it's a debate. So this is where your own executive ownership of your portfolio is gonna say, because you could tell me I'm entirely wrong. I think humans are always gonna want to connect with humans. They're gonna absolutely love humans. And therefore, jobs like servers at restaurants, jobs that include human contacts are never gonna go away. You could argue that, but when I look at Gen Z, this is not the direction that I see. That's just my take. So I may be wrong, but I'm not taking the risk, because I think people using AI chatbots and simply using actual AI for conversations, I think is entirely going to disrupt mental health professionals on these platforms. So and of course, and you could also say, oh well, they have a tiny bit of a prescription business when they prescribe anxiety drugs or depression drugs like Lexapro, escitalopram, or something like that. I don't think that would be enough to help them. So anyways, it's cheap, but it's not as cheap as HIMSS, and it's not as cheap as LifeMD, and the rule of 40 is not there. So that's why, of course, and of course, not to mention LifeMD and HIMSS both have big anxiety offerings, right? If the only thing that remains is the medication, the pill, well, the counseling is not a big part, and if you can just turn your AI into a counselor, well, that's no good. And think about Teladoc. Teladoc with BetterHelp, they may be in trouble. I don't want to say in trouble, but they may have a hard time too, because, well, they're only cash pay therapists on BetterHelp, right? So it's like you have that or you have an AI. I think a lot of people are going to want to use AI. So that feels entirely disrupted. And let me conclude with two stocks, which, frankly, may or may not. I mean, UNH doesn't belong in there, but I'm including UNH because of the news, right? UNH dropped 54% in a matter of, well, a month. Let's call it a month. So, and despite that huge drop, it's actually incredible to think how poorly valued UnitedHealthcare is in my spreadsheet. Like it's poorly. It's a 0.471, and it doesn't break the rule of 40. So 0.471 for a company of this level is not that bad per se, but you at least gotta break the rule of 40, right? Nvidia is trading at about that, a 0.471, but their rule of 40 is like a 150 or a 160 or something like that at Nvidia. That's how profitable Nvidia is, and if you add the revenue growth, that's how you get past 100, right? This one 80. I mean, EBITDA margin 9%, gross margin 22%. This is not a very attractive business in my view. Now, despite this huge drop, I still think we're in for a technical bounce, because to me this drop is a dysfunction of TradFi more than anything. That's what this drop is showing. It's a dysfunction of TradFi. Like how do you erase, I don't know, $200 billion of value just like that in a month? I think it's more telling about TradFi than it is about UNH. But one thing that concerns me about UNH, and I think about that a lot, actually, it's kind of a pastime for me to track how much debt companies have. They have $81 billion of debt. That is a lot of debt, and much of that debt is because of Optum and them trying to grow Optum. Actually, UNH, I think, is the leading employer of MDs in the United States. They got tens of thousands of them, from my understanding. But they also own about 3,000 standalone clinics, like owning entire cities sometimes, entire network of clinics within cities. They own hundreds of hospitals, hundreds of surgery centers, and when I look at all of that, I would be concerned about the impairment of that real estate, because, like, take your standard run-of-the-mill local clinic, not urgent care, just your standard local clinic with, say, maybe downstairs you have a phlebotomist, maybe upstairs you have, your regular general practitioners, and maybe on the floor, maybe you have, like, the specialist, like the pediatrician or the gynecologist, like your very standard clinic. Like, most of these exams can be done remotely. Yeah, right. In the case of HIMSS, That's remotely in the comfort of the provider's home. And so I'm afraid about the cash cow which have financed this real estate. That cash cow going to companies like LifeMD, companies like HIMSS, and then you would have, your standalone physical clinic that actually requires a doctor's examination. Well, that's all that's going to be left. That's all of these visits that are going to be left. And then how do you justify such an infrastructure if we lose, I don't know, half, 60, 70% of the visits to online visits? What's going to happen, right? That's my main concern. And you may say, well, you need to see people in person. Well, less and less, right? I talk about this all the time on this channel. Your iPhone is going to be able to detect a lot of things on you. All right. If you're gonna, that's one of my personal beliefs is that we're gonna have phones with X-rays at some point, and I know that still shocks people when you hear that. You try dermatology, right? Try if you take a picture, if you have a beauty mark or anything, take a picture, and then ask your favorite AI if they think it's concerning or not, and the AI will just tell you, no, I don't think that's cancer. I think you're fine. Hopefully the AI says that. But does that make sense? It's so I would be concerned about that. And I would also be concerned about medical technology. I covered on this channel a while back about these mini how do you call them? It's MRI. Very good. These mini MRI machines, these very small MRI machines, they used to cost millions, literally millions, and they used to need a special building with special electricity because these things consumed a lot of electricity. And now we have these new portable MRI machines that are coming up that you can just plug into the wall. It uses as much as a dryer, and they cost 20x cheaper. So anyways, I think there's going to be a lot of impairment in the medical real estate. Of course, today everybody knows about office real estate impairment, but I think medical real estate is also going to be impaired. And so when you have $81 billion of debt, that's a little concerning. Teladoc, of course, I don't have much to say. It's a former darling, right? It's one of Cathie Wood's mistakes, which she's owning. She's owning that one. She was very big on Teladoc, and unfortunately, sometimes growth stocks don't work. Teladoc growth stalled. I think Teladoc probably overpaid for. Probably, who am I kidding? They definitely overpaid for better help. And so I don't know if a lot of people are still invested in Teladoc, but I really think Teladoc is not working because lots of customers are moving to cash pay, because when cash pay is cheaper than your copay, or when cash pay the price is certain and you know exactly what you're going to pay. I mean, it's $19 a month on LifeMD Plus to see a doctor. $19 a month. So, why would you take the risk of going through Teladoc and you don't know how much you're going to get charged? Anyways, why would you even take a risk of creating an account? Anyways, makes sense. So what, you probably know what I mean. So UNH and Teladoc, these stocks. UNH, I think over the short term, I think it's going to bounce back. Teladoc, I wouldn't touch it. So, anyways, but I like LifeMD and HIMSS and Talkspace. Unfortunately, I think AI is going to be a big threat. Anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is just entertainment. Hoping you were entertained. Please please subscribe. Follow me on Patreon. Follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.